I missed the last batch of troops evacuating. Initially, I thought this was the worst-case scenario. However, what followed was a series of disasters: acid rain, extreme cold, collapsing overpasses, and streets littered with corpses. Can we survive? 1. I was awakened by the heat. Normally, after working a night shift, I would sleep until it got dark, but I woke up at 2 in the afternoon. My sheets were soaked with sweat, and the sunlight coming through the window was scorchingly hot. Was there a power outage? I forced myself to get up and walked to the window. The streets were empty, and the heat seemed to crawl along the asphalt road, blinding yet eerily quiet. My heart suddenly began beating irregularly. I remembered the restless dreams I had during my nap, filled with faint sounds of honking. So, it wasn't a dream, the honking was real. I picked up my phone and scrolled through the latest notifications, but all connections to the outside world had stopped at 8:10 a.m. Now it was 2 p.m., and the signal icon showed a red question mark. After sitting dazed on the hot wooden floor for a good 10 minutes, I had to accept the unthinkable. At 8:10 a.m., there was a purple alert for extreme heat, and the entire population of City K was ordered to evacuate to City Z. Now, at 2:10 p.m., I had missed the government-organized evacuation by 6 hours. The entire old district had lost power. Looking at the last missed call on my phone screen, my parents had tried to reach me repeatedly, switching from WeChat to mobile calls, and the last message from Mom read, "Phoebe, answer the phone. My hometown is in City Z," at least indicating that they are safe. My nose tingled, and suddenly, I stood up. If I couldn't follow the troop, I'd go alone. The first thing now was to prepare supplies. The first essential in extreme heat must be water. I opened the refrigerator and began packing items into a suitcase. Thankful that living alone had made me stock up on pandemic supplies: soda water x10, compressed biscuits x10, herbal remedy water x10, cooling oil x2, sun umbrellas x2, sunscreen raincoats x2, portable charger x1, small electric fan x1, first aid kit plus basic emergency medicine. Suddenly, something fluffy rubbed against my foot. I paused and looked down into the clear, big eyes of Biscuit, my tabby cat. It seemed to sense that something was wrong. Having left its spot on the balcony and was rubbing anxiously against my foot, I stroked its head, pondered for a moment, and then stuffed a bag of cat food into the suitcase. Remember to behave, don't run around. I put a leash on it, as carrying a cat in a backpack wouldn't be wise in such extreme weather. Biscuit seemed to understand and licked the palm of my hand. 2. Opening the front door, a wave of heat hit me, making it difficult to breathe instantly. I dabbed a few drops of cooling oil on my nose to ease the discomfort and checked my phone again. Still no signal, likely a problem with the base stations. Roughly estimating, City K was about 200 kilometers from City Z. The nearest evacuation point was the air raid shelter at Century Square, about 5 kilometers from my old district, with a population of 8 million in City K. It's impossible to evacuate everyone within 6 hours. As long as I can catch the last batch evacuating to the bomb shelters, I can follow the troops to City Z, carrying a suitcase down from the 6th floor. The few drops of menthol oil on my nose are completely ineffective. The air is filled with scorching heat, making even breathing feel searing. Suddenly, a click sound came from the door on the 1st floor. Immediately after, the door swung open abruptly, and I was stunned. Are there still people in this old neighborhood? Our eyes met, and the person adjusted their glasses, glanced at my suitcase, and frowned. "Are you going to your death?" I was pulled into the room on the 1st floor, and Biscuit quickly followed. The sudden coolness was disconcerting. It took me a moment to adjust. Then I looked at him. "How do you still have electricity here?" I connected to the community's backup power supply. He adjusted his glasses and retrieved a thermometer from the window. "The outdoor temperature is 57 degrees Celsius. Dragging that big suitcase, you'd be dead on the street in less than 20 minutes. I looked down. Temperatures over 60 degrees Celsius could be fatal. "So, what? We wait here to die?" He pursed his lips, and after a long pause, he said, "Wait for rescue." Looking at the thermometer in his hand, I was pensive. "How long will the backup power last?" He hesitated. 2 days. "So, you're saying, in 2 days, we'll die?" He remained silent. "Do you think the government isn't aware that there are people who missed the evacuation?" A glance came my way. I opened a bottle of soda and drank half of it in one go. City K has a population of 8 million. The government's current plan is to save as many as possible. There are simply no resources for rescue. If we don't save ourselves now, when the temperature hits 60 degrees, who will you be waiting for? I met his gaze. Through the lenses, I could sense his hesitation. "I know you, Max. A master's degree in physics from K University. I'm a doctor. I don't want to die, nor do I want to just wait for death." It was 2:30 p.m. The ticking of the second hand was unusually clear. Max suddenly stood up. "I'll pack up. Wait for me." While Max was packing, I browsed through his computer, which was still unable to connect to the internet, only displaying information cached until 8:10 a.m. The ozone layer above City K had suddenly thinned. allowing unrestrained UV radiation that caused a rapid rise in temperature. The weather forecast had consistently reported 39 degrees Celsius, although it had been in the 40s in the past few days. Moreover, experts had declared at 7:30 a.m. that the last phase of the dog days of summer was almost over. I scoffed, unable to help mocking bullshit experts. Biscuit jumped onto my lap, watching the computer screen with me. I petted its head as I continued to search through the limited data. In such a situation, you're still bringing a cat, Max chuckled derisively as he pulled out a map of City K from a lower cabinet and handed it to me. Ignoring him, I took the map. When do we leave? No. I paused, looking at his suitcase. Besides water and food, it was packed with a full array of tools, voltage pens, wires, screwdrivers, and many others I couldn't name. I didn't understand. I looked at him. The end of the world is upon us, and you're bringing these. That was even more absurd than me bringing a cat. They'll be useful, he said succinctly, glancing at the sky outside. Let's stick to the original plan and head to the bomb shelter at Century Square. I nodded, handed him a bottle of herbal tonic, and opened the door. Another wave of heat hit us, almost suffocating. Just as Max was about to step out, I pulled him back, grabbing a handful of his sweaty shirt. The ultraviolet rays at this intensity can cause skin cancer. Put on a raincoat. He quickly slipped into the raincoat. We'll drive there. Isn't it too hot? Could the car spontaneously combust? It might, he said, starting to tinker with a white car. That's why we need to hurry. It was 2:40 p.m. I glanced unconsciously at the top right corner of my phone. Still no signal. It seemed this area had become a dead zone after loading our supplies into the trunk. I got into the passenger seat with my cat. The temperature inside the car was even higher than outside, unbearably stuffy. Isn't this your car? No, he said, buckling up and using a serrated key to unlock the steering wheel. I paused. Do you even have a driver's license? No. The car started, and the hot tires screeched against the asphalt. Inside the car, the air conditioning slowly brought the temperature down and my heart rate began to stabilize. No driver's license, so be it. The streets were empty anyway. From the passenger seat, I could clearly see the heat waves rolling across the ground, warping the yellow lines on the road. What are you doing? He frowned at me, staring at my fingertips. Ignoring him, I continued to increase the car's AC temperature to 35 degrees Celsius. Too much of a temperature difference can be deadly. Max turned the steering wheel silently, sweat beading on his forehead. The drive to Century Square would take about 15 minutes. And in 15 minutes, we could meet up with the main group. I gazed out the window at the empty apartment buildings, resembling a ghost town. As we passed a cell tower, my phone suddenly vibrated, beginning to push notifications. I excitedly picked up my phone, saw a brief 2-bar signal in the top right corner, and then a glaring red no signal icon. Don't worry, we'll get a signal at the shelter. Max glanced quickly at my phone screen before focusing back on the road. I looked down, feeling the car's steady, high-speed journey. My heart sinking like it was falling into an endless icy abyss. We don't need to go to the bomb shelter anymore. Just 50 minutes ago, I forced myself to calm down, my nails digging into my palm. The last evacuation from Century Square was completed. For screech, a sharp breaking sound, and inertia yanked at my shoulder painfully. Can't you drive properly? Max snatched the map of K-City from my hands, scanned it briefly, and marked several points with a black marker, from south to north. The major bomb shelters in K-City are located at Century Square, Kadong Building, Jiaorui Square, and in Jiang Park, and Jiang Park's bomb shelter was the closest evacuation point to Z-City. In other words, I pursed my lips. If we head straight to Anjing Park, we might still make it. No, he interrupted me sharply. It'll take an hour and a half to get there. The heat is too intense. And running the engine that long could cause the car to burst into flames. The car was silent. A bead of sweat dripped from my chin with a drip sound. Max looked at me through his glasses. Most importantly, we're running out of fuel. So, is this what they mean by when it rains, it pours? I managed a wry smile, glancing at the thermometer in front of the car. Despite the air conditioning set at 35 degrees Celsius, the thermometer had climbed to 42 degrees. The sunlight outside was blinding. I squinted and leaned back in my seat, overwhelmed by confusion. What's your name? Max suddenly asked. Phoebe. The engine started again, the seat vibrating slightly as Max took hold of the steering wheel. Let's take a gamble and head to Century Square. Take a gamble. My eyelashes fluttered, my gaze fixed ahead as trees whizzed past the car window. After leaving the old neighborhood, the road was still deserted. So, are we really the last 2 people left in City K? In the past, post-apocalyptic stories always thrilled me, but now, all I felt was profound despair and helplessness. I murmured, Max, I don't want to die. We're not dying yet. The car slowly drove up a ramp and into the underground parking of Century Square, which also served as a bomb shelter. It was pitch black, still no electricity. Max got out of the car and opened the hood to cool the engine. The temperature in the bomb shelter is bearable, probably around 45 degrees Celsius. I followed him out. The bomb shelter was vast and empty. Originally designed to accommodate tens of thousands of people, I turned on my phone's flashlight and walked deeper inside. After a few steps, I realized I couldn't hear any footsteps. Turning around, I saw him by a small device, tampering up and down. "What are you doing?" He swiftly pulled out his toolkit from the trunk. "If I'm right, the signal is particularly weak in the bomb shelter. The military personnel must have set up a temporary mini-signal base station to communicate with the outside world. Can it be used? I'll try connecting it to the car engine." I nodded. He was fixing the signal base station, and I couldn't help much. Right now, the priority was to gather equipment. I walked deeper into the bomb shelter. Since it had been evacuated recently, many things must have been left behind. Things that might help us escape from City K. Meow. Suddenly, a sharp cat cry. I stopped in my tracks. "Biscuit, 5. I ran back the way I came frantically. A small black shadow darted back up the slope and hid under the car. Max paused his repairs and looked toward the light at the slope. Biscuit was safe, but my heart was still racing. "What's wrong?" He frowned. "There's someone else." The soundproofing in the bomb shelter was too good. It wasn't until we walked up the slope that we could hear the loud rain outside. It was raining. I watched the rainwater flowing down the slope. "So, will it cool down?" "I can't go outside." A hoarse voice came from around the corner. "I'll go over." "Don't move." Max frowned and pulled me behind him, striding toward the corner. It was a man, but I took 2 steps back. My heart began to race again, and my gaze fell back on the slope, where the rainwater was slowly steaming. Max, through his raincoat, moved the man inside, and the man's pained groans filled my ears. "The rain is scalding." The man's face and bare arms were covered with large and small red patches and blisters, a shocking sight. Hearing this, Max paused and looked toward the light. We were in a bomb shelter, unable to see outside, only able to see the liquid slowly flowing down the slope. He frowned, glanced at the water on the ground, and crouched down to test its temperature. "Don't move." He paused in his movements and turned to look at me, judging by this mist. "The water temperature is at most 60 to 70 degrees Celsius. It couldn't cause burns of this severity." I tilted my chin, gesturing toward the man. The man's clothes were not completely wet, but wherever the rain touched, there were red patches and blisters. Max caught on, frowning. "Is there something wrong with the rain?" "I guess so. You move the car inside. I'll handle this." I calmly took a first aid kit from the trunk, put on gloves, and took out 2 bottles of soda water. The man opened his eyes, weakly pleading. "Please, save me. I don't want to die. Drink some water. Don't talk. Save your strength." After dropping that line, I started cutting his clothes with scissors. Large areas of red patches were dotted with blisters, and where the blisters had burst, the skin was ulcerated. Such injuries seemed like acid corrosion. The sensation of the corrosive burns was similar to that of scalds. Glancing again at the entrance, I swallowed and remembered an article from an expert a couple of months ago during the rainy season. This year's rainfall is more acidic than in previous years. It's just that no one had paid attention at the time. I opened another bottle of soda water and began to rinse his wounds to neutralize the acidity. My hands were steady, but my heart suddenly felt uneasy. The man drank half a bottle of soda water in one go, regaining some strength, and then began to sob uncontrollably. My wife and kids didn't make it. Too many people were evacuating. No one came to help. They all died on the road. A burly man, at this moment, crying breathlessly, feeling a heavy sensation in my chest. I pursed my lips. "Stop crying. Your injuries are not light." But the man seemed to have found an outlet, crying even harder. Max parked the car and picked up some seemingly useful items from a corner of the bomb shelter, walking over with a complex expression. "Do you want to die?" Not wanting to waste time, I spoke indifferently to the man. "If you want to die, I'll stop helping you. It's a waste of my energy." The man's sobbing paused, and the red patches on his face became even more evident. Finally, the bomb shelter quieted down. The man's hoarse voice tugged at my sleeve. "Please save me. I don't want to die." With a sigh, I continued treating his wounds. And as I got up when I finished, suddenly, everything went dark before my eyes. "Are you okay?" Max came over to help me. I waved him off. "Just been crouching too long. I'm fine." Glancing at the man resting with his eyes closed, Max held up his cell phone with a complex expression. "The signal tower is fixed, and I found some gasoline in the corner." It should have been good news, but his expression suggested otherwise. Bracing myself, I took off my gloves and tossed them aside. "So what's the worst news?" "All the cities in the south, like K-City, are evacuating northward, with K-City and Z-City marking the division line," Max said, his brows furrowed and face solemn. "Is there an official report?" I unlocked my phone, the screen flooding with news updates and evacuation alerts as I fell into deep thought. So many had already perished. The chaos of evacuation, extreme temperatures, and the selfishness of human nature. The official report is out. There's acid rain outside, and it's set to last a while. Residents trapped in Case City are advised not to leave their homes. The temperature outside is now 58 degrees Celsius, and it's 47 degrees inside this bunker. I continued his thought. So are we just waiting to die here? The bunker, spacious as it was, felt oppressively small and suffocating due to the humid heat, making it hard to breathe. Max and I locked eyes firmly, each reading it determined not to die in the other's gaze. A sudden ringtone broke the silence. I answered the call. It was my mother's voice, anxious and worried. "Phoebe, how are you? Where are you now? Why haven't you been answering your phone?" Tears unexpectedly welled up and I choked up. "I'm with the main group. The signal's bad. I'm safe for now." The line was patchy, with noises in the background. "Have you reached Sea City yet? There are a lot of people on the streets here, sent by the government. Let your dad come to pick you up if you're here." After hastily wiping my face, I took a deep breath. "Not yet. I'll follow the government's instructions. I'm fine now. And you guys stay safe too." The call was filled with static as I hurriedly concluded, "Bad signal. I have to hang up." The temporary signal tower indeed had poor reception. Coming back to the moment, I noticed Max offering me a tissue. "Thanks," I said, taking it from him. "You should also let your family know you're safe." He looked away. "I'm an orphan." I paused, then said, "Let's keep moving. Once the signal tower disconnects from the engine, we'll lose contact with the outside world again." He didn't finish his sentence, but I understood. If we went out now, our fate was uncertain, dead or alive. No one would know. Nodding, I took a deep breath. "Let's go." Suddenly, my thigh was grabbed. Startled, I heard the man who had been resting pleading, "Take me with you. I won't be any trouble. I don't want to die." His eyes were filled with panic and fear as he shifted from a half-lying position to kneeling. "Please, I beg you. I want to go to Z City too. My parents are still there." His grip on my raincoat tightened, and Max's eyes trembled. "You need to get up. I'm sorry," I interrupted Max, turning to the man as I suddenly spoke out. The man's body shuddered violently, and Max's figure paused in my peripheral vision. "You might survive if you stay here, but if you come with us, you're certain to die." I ruthlessly threw out the harsh reality. The hand on my thigh loosened, and I broke free, fetching a few boxes of compressed biscuits and some bottles of soda water from the trunk. I handed him a tube of erythromycin ointment. "Calm down and listen to me. First, your injuries are severe. Long travels will only worsen them. In the extreme heat that follows, if you develop a fever, you will undoubtedly die. Second, these supplies are not enough for 3 people to last a few days. Take these and wait for rescue. Third, the government has issued a notice and called in troops from other provinces and cities for rescue. They will first search places like this air raid shelter. The temperature here is bearable, and you can hold on until they arrive." I showed him the government's announcement on my phone screen. The man seemed to see a glimmer of hope. His lips trembled as he read the announcement over and over again. Finally, he looked up at me with tears in his eyes. "Will I really survive?" I nodded. "Yes." Max stood by silently, his pale fingertips curled. The man eventually decided not to leave with us. I picked up Biscuit and sat in the passenger seat, only then noticing that Biscuit's pink paw pads had lost a layer of skin. It must have been from stepping into the rainwater earlier, which caused that miserable cry. I stroked Biscuit's head, and it meowed softly, nudging against me. Max got into the driver's seat and started the engine without a word. I quietly tended to Biscuit's wound. The car slowly drove out of the air raid shelter. Fortunately, the rain had lessened, but the roadside was littered with fallen branches. Wiping the sweat from my brow, I looked out the window and adjusted my mood. Let's follow the route to Anjiang Park and look for a supermarket along the way to grab some supplies. The supermarket near the air raid shelter looked completely empty. SSS. The car abruptly screeched to a halt, thrown forward by the inertia. I felt a sharp pain in my shoulder and turned to Max. "Are you crazy? Why did you lie to him?" Biscuit, startled, jumped to the back seat. Max violently pounded the steering wheel, his eyes red with anger. "The government clearly cancelled the rescue plan. Why did you lie to him?" "The government's rescue plan was announced at 2:10 p.m. and cancelled at 2:40 p.m. What else should we have done?" I was unexpectedly calm, meeting his gaze. "Take him with us and let him die in the car, or abandon him, tell him the truth, and let him die in despair." The car was silent, raindrops hitting the windshield, leaving trails of water. I relaxed my shoulders, leaned back in the passenger seat, and closed my eyes. "We have no other choice, do we? If it weren't for this disaster." The sound of raindrops tapping on the window would have been quite pleasant. The engine restarted, and I heard Max's cold laugh. "Is that how cold and heartless doctors are?" I turned my face away, irritated. Would definitely not be arguing with him at a time like this. It's the least wise thing to do. After all, I still need him to survive. The car moved smoothly, silent inside the cabin, but as we drove further north, my heart sank deeper. All the supermarkets along the way had been looted empty. It must have been during the evacuation. The residents must have been scrambling for supplies. Now in the trunk, all we had left were 3 bottles of soda water and 4 bags of compressed biscuits. Acid rain will corrode the tires, and with the current water levels, it's inconvenient to proceed. The car slowly stopped on an elevated slope. Max pulled the handbrake and said, I looked at the shops nearby, no supermarkets, just an internet cafe. There's a ring road viaduct at the intersection ahead. Max opened the car door and got out. We can only try our luck here. Taking the viaduct would allow us to bypass Kadong Building and Jiaorui Plaza, directly reaching in Jiang Park. Watching him expertly pry open the door of the internet cafe, I also opened the car door and followed him. Fortunately, there was still some residual air conditioning inside the internet cafe, cooler than outside. I glanced at the thermometer at the front desk and couldn't help but chuckle to myself. 43 degrees Celsius. This weather is really messing with me. Max continued to pry open the front desk's cooler, taking out soda and mineral water, breaking into cars, prying doors. He seemed to have mastered all the necessary skills for the apocalypse. Seeing that I had been quiet for a while, Max turned around with a slight apology. Sorry, I got a bit carried away earlier. I waved it off. Naturally, I wouldn't hold a grudge against someone who was still a student. From the snack cabinet, I pulled out 2 buckets of instant noodles. I have a question. Go ahead. Why were you dismissed by University K? I stared at the reflection in his glasses, not missing any flicker of expression. Did you know the apocalypse was coming? My suspicion was not unfounded. Using his computer at his home, I had seen the email from University K, advisory dismissal letter for physics graduate student Max. The reason given, spreading rumors and causing panic. Moreover, his familiarity with the air raid shelter. Yeah, I've been reborn. The air stilled for a moment. Max frowned. Aren't you surprised? As I just poured the boiling water, I covered the noodle buckets and sighed. It's the apocalypse, brother. You could tell me the ozone layer is thinning because we're not farting enough, and I'd believe you. He looked at me with a complex expression, then took a deep breath. Last time the apocalypse happened, I also missed the evacuation and drove myself to the air raid shelter at Century Plaza. Without tools, I couldn't fix the temporary signal station, and I also met that man. Warm steam wafted from the edges of the noodle bucket lids, and after a moment I spoke. Did he die? Then I understood why he lost control of his emotions, wanting to save him but unable to. Yeah. I only knew there was something wrong with the rainwater. No first aid kit. I didn't know how to save him. I stayed in that air raid shelter for a very long time, and then I was reborn, meaning, he died in the air raid shelter. Max lowered his gaze, his pale hands curled up, touching his nose. If I were you, the first thing I'd do after being reborn, I was just rushing to Z-City nonstop. I sighed, leaning back in my chair. Instead of going around saying that the end was near, nobody would believe that. It seemed I had touched a nerve. Max propped his arms on his knees, hunched over slightly, staring at the ground, lost in thought. Biscuit paced over to his feet, looked up curiously at him, and eventually snuggled up. An immodest, unguarded cat. I was planning to head back to Z-City first. Max finally spoke up with difficulty, but the apocalypse came 10 days early. I didn't expect that. 5 minutes passed, and I pushed a bucket of instant noodles toward him, added 2 sausages. Eat up. I also unwrapped a slice of ham for Biscuit and started eating my noodles. If you don't eat, how will you survive the apocalypse? Max composed himself and glanced outside again. Looks like we'll be spending the night here. 10. Spending the night. But I couldn't sleep at all, feeling ants crawling all over me at the thought of the situation outside. Strangely, the temperature at night didn't seem so hot. I tossed and turned in the chair and eventually opened my eyes. Max, out of nowhere, had found a small generator and turned on a desk lamp. Is the light too harsh? Can't sleep. He adjusted the direction of the lamp. What are you doing? I asked. A solar-powered generator. He pointed at several solar panels. If it works, we can use the base station we brought back from Century Square. That base station had filled the entire back seat of the car. It was too power-hungry, so we hadn't dared to keep it connected to the car engine. I was stunned. The base station that's half a person tall. You plan to have it on the roof while we drive? I'll try to modify it. Classic move from someone with a strong science and engineering background. I got up to stretch and stood by the window looking outside. The acidic rain had stopped. I had never seen K-City so pitch black at night. The stars in the sky were exceptionally bright, and the moon seemed unusually close. A breeze slipped through the crack in the window, making the hairs on my back stand up. I paused. Something was not right. Max. I called him. Without looking up, he responded. What? The thin ozone layer, leading to extreme temperatures. I swallowed, touching the cold window glass, which had a thin layer of mist. Is there a possibility that besides extreme heat, there could also be extreme cold? 11. Max had managed to get the signal base station working again. The network icon in the corner spun for ages, and the message that popped up made me feel like I had fallen into an ice pit. Max stared intently, remaining silent, and the internet cafe fell into a despairing silence. Many people had already died, apart from the first two major groups that evacuated from Anjian Park and Jiaowei Plaza and successfully reached Z City. The residents of K-City who had been evacuating north from Century Square and Kedong Building had stopped because of the acidic rain. Many were corroded by the rain, and there weren't enough medical rescue teams. Those injured died right there on the streets. Out of K-City's 8 million population, half had evacuated, and the remaining half were stuck in the north. Hiding in residential buildings and in Jiaowei Plaza and Anjian Park, the temperature outside is -5 degrees Celsius. Max said gravely. I supported my forehead and closed my eyes. -5 degrees Celsius isn't considered very cold in winter, but this was summer, which means, when everyone was stockpiling supplies for evacuation, who would have thought to prepare for extreme cold? The number of people who froze to death at night was definitely far greater than those killed by acid rain. The situation was grim. Now, most of the evacuees remaining are concentrated in Jiaowei Square and Anjian Park. With a small group also at Kedong Building, Max said hoarsely as he looked at me, "Shall we join them?" So, should we join them? Under the dim light of a small lamp, the fog on the glass window thickened. It was 2 a.m., shaking my head. I whispered softly, "When the apocalypse comes, I can't help but assume the worst in people." We now had electricity, a car, supplies, and a signal, but those people had nothing, I admit. I was selfishly wanting to stay alive. He looked at me for a while, then finally lowered his head and said, "Okay." As the temperature dropped further into the night, even with doors and windows shut, the temperature inside the internet cafe fell to single digits. Max and I rummaged through the storage room and only found a few air conditioning blankets to cover our legs. Leaning on him as he slowly woke up, I looked out the window groggily. The sun is coming up. It had just peeked over the horizon, lighting up half the sky. "Yeah, we can set off now." We had only slept for 2 hours. Now it was 6 a.m. I got up, folded the air conditioning blankets, which also counted as supplies, definitely useful. The figure next to me swayed slightly, and I reached up to support his arm, then suddenly frowned. "Max, you're burning up." Max had a fever, 38.8 degrees. He had been working on a small signal base station during the night, sleeping even less than me, and he was naturally thin, which made him look like he had low immunity. The fluctuation between cold and heat had made him sick. Just then, I looked at the sun outside. Extreme daytime temperatures could be deadly with a fever. "Maybe you should drive away," Max suggested after taking some fever-reducing medicine, then paused before continuing. "I can wait for rescue here just the same. Leave you here to die." I pinched the bridge of my nose, completely thrown off balance from the start of this survival journey. My goal had been to survive at all costs, but now, I didn't want Max to die, and I knew I'd likely die without him. "Or you could take me with you. If I die in the car, just dump me by the roadside," Max joked with a helpless smile. "Who knows, maybe I'll be reborn." Glaring at him, I started loading supplies into the car trunk. The car's body was badly corroded by acid rain. The sun had just risen. The temperature was neutral, surprisingly comfortable. "Today's temperature is expected to reach 59 degrees Celsius. You can't stay here," I said, turning back to look at him. "If you're going to die, die once we reach Z City." He paused, then suddenly laughed. "Okay." After the modifications, the small signal base station was only the size of a telephone, but the downside was that the signal was a bit weak. "Let's make do with this." Max had secured the solar panel and base station to the car roof, and was now gasping for breath. "Take a break," I said as I tossed him a bottle of soda water. "The sick one takes the passenger seat. I'll drive." After fiddling around for a bit, I turned to the right. "Which one's the gas and which is the brake again?" Max just gave me a blank look. Luckily for a beginner like me, the road was wide. "Just follow the yellow line up ahead. It leads to the overpass," Max said hoarsely, his voice a bit raspy, with no other cars around. I drove rather recklessly, out of the corner of my eye. I caught Biscuit snuggling in his lap, purring contentedly, which brought a subtle smile to my lips. I opened my mouth, intending to strike up a conversation with my ailing companion. Brake, hit the brakes," Max suddenly shouted, urgency in his tone. "What?" He swiftly grabbed the steering wheel, leaned over, and spun at 360 degrees with one hand. I slammed on the brakes, and the tires screeched harshly on the middle of the road. "Max, have you lost your mind?" I exclaimed. "Hit the gas, now." Fast, instinctively, I obeyed, and the car surged forward at a tremendous speed. It might have been my imagination, but the ground seemed to tremble slightly as the car sped away, finally slowing down at an intersection. Still shaken, I looked in the rearview mirror just in time to see the overpass collapse in a cloud of dust. Max, catching his breath in the passenger seat, gasped. The support pillars of the overpass were cracked. "It's insane," from one end of the overpass to the other. It collapsed like dominoes, kicking up a thick cloud of dust. Leaning against the steering wheel, my heart was still pounding fiercely. We had narrowly escaped being buried under that overpass. That was insane, I murmured. Most of the evacuation yesterday must have taken that overpass, plus the extreme temperature changes must have. Max frowned, staring intently at the K-City map in his hands. If we don't take the overpass, I said, starting to feel hungry. I tore open a package of bread. How long will it take to get to Z-City? We decided not to meet up with the troops at Anjiang Park and instead entered through the border checkpoint between K-City and Z-City. 2 hours. I gripped the steering wheel. What's the route? Let's make the most of the cool weather and push through. Max's pale fingertips touched the steering wheel again, his voice weak. Hold on a moment. What's up? There's someone coming. It was 6:30 in the morning. A black dot appeared on the distant wide road, growing larger as it approached. My pupils dilated. A black sedan. Could it be that someone else had the same idea? As the black sedan drew near, probably having seen the collapsed overpass, it finally slowed down beside our car. The car window rolled down, revealing a tattooed arm. Need a companion. Through the window, my gaze landed on the muscular man. Hesitating, he pointed to his trunk. I set off yesterday, got all sorts of supplies. No need to rob you guys. Now that the overpass is down, want to take the road below. Max signaled for me to roll down the window, cleared his throat, and said, thanks, we'd appreciate the guidance. Tattooed arm nodded and turned the car around. As we drove on, I couldn't help feeling uneasy. Max, do you think he's trustworthy? For now, it seems we're on the right track. Max looked down, drawing circles and lines on a paper map. Do you think there are others in his car? He glanced at the dark car ahead, reflecting on it briefly before shaking his head. Judging by how the tires are sinking, it could just be a lot of supplies. The 2 cars drove one after the other, maintaining a steady pace. Once we passed through Rue Square, signs of human presence became unmistakably clear. Random debris thrown on the streets, fleeting glances from residential buildings, and the bodies lying motionless by the roadside. As the temperature rose, my skin prickled with unease. If the text message I received yesterday mentioning many deaths was just an abstract concept, then now, it was a visceral visual assault on the very essence of humanity. Skin corroded by acidic rain, lips turned black from the cold night. I forced myself to suppress physical discomfort and followed the black car closely. Conversely, the middle of the road was clean, likely cleared for emergency vehicles. So, this is what the real apocalypse looks like, Max muttered, looking out the window. The car ahead continued its smooth journey, and I tried my best to avoid looking at the corpses on the roadside. The thermometer is on your right. Check it. 39, 3 degrees. Don't worry, we're not dying yet. He coughed twice, sipping water with cheeks flushed abnormally. Just hold on a little longer. Once we reach Z-City, we'll be safe. I said this as much for Max as for myself, but can we really make it to Z-City alive? As more and more people gathered along the roadside, the sounds from outside the car shifted from whispers to a loud, unsettling din. Shouldn't they be evacuating as per the government's plan? Suddenly, the black car in front slowed down, and I quickly hit the brakes. A glance revealed hundreds of residents rushing from the buildings to the middle of the road. Were they trying to stop the car? Because of yesterday's acid rain, many cars were soaked and unusable, Max said, looking at his phone with pale lips. The government has delayed the rescue. The plan to evacuate everyone today has been postponed to 7 days. 7 days. My voice rose in pitch. Looking at the crowd surging towards us, I felt a profound sense of dread. 7 days. To endure 7 more days like yesterday. Can we survive? My palms sweated, gripping the steering wheel tighter. Suddenly, the black car surged forward, charging straight towards the crowd. What is he doing? Max straightened up, his raspy voice breaking. If I'm not mistaken, I glanced at the rearview mirror, seeing the crowd closing in, bit my tongue hard to stay alert, and pushed the gas pedal. Phoebe, are you crazy? The view was filled with the violent shaking of the black car, the muffled noise of bodies hitting metal, cries from the crowd, and the sounds of unavoidable falls and crushing resonated in my ears. And I keep a distance of less than 3 meters from the black car, tearing through the road it opens up, racing along. Phoebe, Max's voice trembles, filled with disbelief. I take a deep breath, my lips quivering. Stop, or we'll all die. Those crazed with the will to survive have red eyes and pale lips, stooping to any means to live on. If they stop us, we will die. The car is quiet, so quiet that we can hear each other's breathing. Max leans back into his seat, looking exhaustedly at the ceiling. Why has it come to this? Why indeed? I wonder the same. 14. After a long drive, the black car slowly stops in front of a supermarket, far from residential areas, so there are no people around. The man with the tattooed arm steps out of the car, gestures towards us, then enters the supermarket. Perhaps we could still stockpile some useful supplies. Just as I'm about to open the car door, Max grabs my wrist, his palm burning hot. What's wrong? We don't need supplies. He shakes his head, frowning. I stare at him for a while, then ask, are you wary of the black car driver? He doesn't speak, which I take as confirmation. Biscuit snuggles comfortably in his arms, purring, the man and the cat getting along harmoniously throughout the trip. I sigh. He did hit someone, but there was no choice in that situation. Max continues to shake his head. It's just a gut feeling. I laugh. A science and engineering guy. And you're more sensitive than I am, a woman. I'll find you some fever reducers, and who knows what else might be needed. I'll also look for something to keep warm. If you're worried, stay in the car. The grip on my wrist tightens. I frown, realizing he's determined not to let me go out. The fever has gone down a bit. He struggles to speak, handing me a thermometer reading 38.9 degrees, me feeling somewhat irritated. I exhale a breath of frustration. If you're so cautious, why did you choose to escape with me? That's not what I meant, Max. He has a car. He has supplies. What benefit is there for him to harm us? The car falls silent once more. As the temperature outside gradually rises, the tattooed arm emerges from the supermarket with a box of water, notices our car is already positioned to leave, looks surprised, and starts placing things in the passenger seat. A knock on the window. Don't you need to stock up on more supplies? The window cracks open slightly. I ask, when do we leave? The tattooed arm looks troubled. Anjing Park is just ahead. There will definitely be more people there. Rushing through might be dangerous. Recalling the recent scene, I lower my gaze, wondering if we should face such a situation again. Let's discuss our strategy. The tattooed arm sighs, suggesting, it's too hot outside. Maybe we should sit in the supermarket where it's cooler. A wave of heat seeps through the window crack, nearly suffocating me. The tattooed arm's face is flushed, sweat dripping from his chin. I nod, reaching for the car door handle, but halfway there, my wrist is grasped once again, pale fingertips clenched around my wrist, their palm burning hot with fever. I frowned and looked at Max. What's wrong? The car window was cracked open just a sliver, not enough to see inside from the outside. Max glanced at the tattooed arm, then back at the black car with a complex expression, whispering, you said he has supplies. Why are you sure he's telling the truth? My heart skipped a beat. I pursed my lips and looked in the same direction as him. Suddenly, I noticed that though the car was stained with some blood, there were no signs of acid rain corrosion. This meant that yesterday, the man with the tattooed arm didn't have this car, even though he claimed he had set out then. After a pause, I lowered the hand that was pressing the door opener and simultaneously locked the car. Max was right. We needed to be cautious. The window was tapped again. What's going on? I know a shortcut that bypasses Anjing Park. Follow us. Max leaned in and called out. Wabai hesitated for a moment before suggesting, should we discuss the route first? Someone tugged at the car door from outside, causing my heart to skip a beat. Was Max's guess correct? Why lock the door? Huabai, growing impatient and starting to turn red where the ultraviolet rays hit him, wiped off some sweat. I just wanted to team up with you, and I already helped you get out, so why? Let's go. Max suddenly hissed at me. I steeled myself, floored the accelerator, and sped off. Huabai refused to let go and was dragged a few meters before finally falling to the ground. In the rearview mirror, 3 burly men with full arm tattoos emerged from the backseat of the black car, cursing in our direction. Just as I thought, the car tires are rebounding normally. I guess they don't have supplies, Max said, his eyes moving away from the rearview mirror as he rubbed his brow. I swallowed hard. But aren't there supplies at the supermarket? Have you lost your mind from the heat? Max frowned at me, and Jump Park is up ahead. With such a conspicuous supermarket, how could there still be supplies left? The box of water he just brought out was probably empty bottles. Looking at the figures shrinking to dots in the rearview mirror, I felt a sense of relief after the ordeal. No wonder Huabai kept trying to gain our trust, wanting us to get out and fetch supplies. If we had fallen for his trick, the moment we opened the car door, we would have been, still puzzled. I frowned. If they were short on supplies, they could have just asked us nicely to share some and then search together. Why resort to robbery? Stupid question, Max scoffed. Their engine valve is making noise, probably due to low oil. A small car can't carry that many people and supplies. I was at a loss for words. Driving really does lower one's IQ. Has the government issued any new notices? The figure beside me slumped against the passenger seat, an ominous feeling brewing. I continued, can you hold on? I reached up to touch his forehead, which was still burning hot. I'll take a nap, he coughed, eyes closed, and handed me a map of K-City. I've marked the route for you. Just follow it. I glanced at the crumpled map in his hand and the shaky black lines that looked like they were drawn by someone with Parkinson's. I frowned. Don't sleep. I can't understand the map. There was no response from beside me, I admit. I'm truly directionally challenged. Other than understanding that the first turn was to the right, the rest of the route seemed like the work of someone suffering from Parkinson's disease, completely incomprehensible. Glancing at the still sleeping Max, I sighed resignedly. Without Max being lucid, we couldn't proceed. Looking at the distant cluster of buildings, I decided to head straight there, if today brought more acid rain and extreme cold. The factory would undoubtedly be a place where we could find effective protective supplies. In recent years, the rapid economic development in K-City and many cities in the south had led to the construction of numerous factories in the suburbs. Consequently, air pollution levels rose. After residents complained, the government made a token effort to increase greenery in the main urban areas, but it was hardly enough. I slowly drove the car into the first factory building and parked on the open ground on the first floor, sheltering from the sun and rain. A cement factory. Max slowly opened his eyes. You're planning to. We can't go any further. I pointed to the open space outside where the concrete floor was dotted with raindrops. It was eerily unusual. At 7:40 in the morning, acid rain had already started falling, and the temperature had skyrocketed to yesterday afternoon's level of 57.8 degrees Celsius. Car tires wouldn't withstand such prolonged corrosion. Moreover, the solar panels on the car roof and the signal stations couldn't get wet. This was critical. Stay in the car, I said as I opened the door, grabbing a flashlight and some water. I'll go look for something useful. Max frowned and struggled to get up. I'll come with you. No need. If you faint, I'd have to carry you back. I waved my hand dismissively, closed the car door, and headed directly to the safety passage. The factory was eerily quiet, with only the echo of my footsteps in the corridor. Thankfully, being in the shade, the temperature wasn't scorching. I managed to snag a few flannel blankets and clean towels from the top floor office area. Just as I was about to head downstairs, a document on the desk caught my eye, and I paused. Regarding the pollution emissions in the industrial park, there were 2 copies. Even though it felt like the end of the world, I couldn't help but flip them open. The densely packed square typeface seemed almost alien to me. My blood ran cold. It was madness, true madness. Carrying the 2 documents, I rushed down the safety passage. Seeing Max, I was taken aback. Are you sick? If you have a fever, stay in the car, I scolded. Max gave me an apologetic smile and put down the small pushcart he was holding. I just saw some urea fertilizer and quicklime. A physics grad student interested in chemical products. I rolled my eyes at him and walked towards the car. Don't think about using them as supplies. There's not enough room in the car. No, it's not that. He took a few unsteady steps towards me and took the items from my hands. What's wrong? I really shouldn't have snapped at him that much. I took a deep breath and asked, do you remember the first news story from yesterday about the safe escape of entrepreneurs in K-City? I remember. Many netizens were angry, saying that all lives are equal and that entrepreneurs shouldn't be evacuated first. Handing him the documents, I wiped the sweat from my forehead and muttered resentfully, if some have to die, they are the ones who deserve it the most. Max frowned, flipping through the document from start to finish, the edges of the pages trembling slightly. Last year, when the air pollution index was unusually high compared to previous years, a directive had been issued calling for the creation of a harmonious environment between humanity and nature and reducing pollution alongside economic development, but they just discharged untreated polluted water and gases directly into the environment, across the entire industrial park. Max looked up at me incredulously. 2 documents, one for direct discharge, and one with a complete SOP process. They're playing both sides, I sneered. Look at the date of signing. They never implemented the ban issued last year. They've got some nerve, and this was just one industrial park in the northern suburbs of K-City. What about the others? Max was silent for a moment, then tucked the documents into a folder and stashed it in a corner of the car. What are you doing now? Seeing him continue to move the small pushcart, I couldn't help but ask. Max found a large wooden barrel from the corner, for cooling. Me, not sure what he was planning to do. I still helped him pour urea fertilizer into the barrel and added water from a nearby tap. Can this really provide cooling? I asked curiously. I only knew that adding water to quicklime can generate heat. Max, without looking up, said, that's for use at night. I helped him wrap wet towels in a sealed plastic bag and threw them into the barrel. He blinked and looked up at me. Understand the physics of cooling. I handed him a few more damp towels, though they were just warm. Once the towels cooled down a bit, placing them on the forehead, neck, armpits, and upper thighs, where the major arteries are, can help reduce fever faster. Max smiled and nodded. The barrel slowly emitted a cool breeze. The side of the body closest to it felt slightly cool, while the other side was still scorching, but we seemed to have grown accustomed to this state. Sitting on the ground, I watched the raindrops splatter on the concrete outside the workshop, pitter-pattering, feeling somewhat emotional. I really miss my parents. I graduated right when the pandemic started. Spent 3 years on the front lines, and I always thought, once the pandemic is over, I must go home. Max looked at me. Ignoring him, I continued to talk to myself, my voice tinged with emotion. When I realized I had missed the evacuation, I thought, I must see them before I die. A pale finger offered me a clean tissue, which I took without hesitation and blew my nose hard. Max, do you have something that keeps you going? Not before, he admitted, sitting down beside me. But now I do. What? I kind of want to be a hero. He suddenly smiled shyly, gesturing towards where the documents were kept, his expression turning resolute. Those things shouldn't just be known by us. Realizing what he meant, I couldn't help but laugh dryly. Max, have you been watching too many American movies? Whether we can survive this is still a question. He paused, his gaze turning towards the rain outside, lips pursed. We'll make it. 17. Max's knowledge and practical skills were indeed useful. We got through the afternoon with urea and the night with quicklime quite comfortably, perhaps inspired by a hero complex. His fever normalized after the first physical cooling without recurring. I opened my tired eyes. It's only 4 a.m., big brother. Didn't we agree to leave at 6 a.m.? The rainwater has all flowed into the sewer, the acidic rain on the ground has almost dried up, and the temperature is above zero. We can leave now. Max gave a thorough and undeniable reason. I glanced at the gray sky outside and struggled to adjust the back of my seat. I'll drive today, don't worry, you can keep sleeping, he said energetically. I waved my hand. Can't sleep anymore. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed an extra laptop and a stack of documents on the back seat, which fully woke me up. Max, what were you doing while I was asleep? He started the car, raising an eyebrow, gathering evidence. Emails between several industrial park managers in K-City and document agreements with entrepreneurs from many southern cities. I was bewildered. Wasn't there a power outage? The internet cafe's generator was hacked into its back-end system, so the computer password hacked into the back-end. I said, you really know quite a lot, ever since we escaped together the day before yesterday. I've mostly been leading the way, and I had never seen him so purposeful. I smiled. Boys and their hero complexes, understandable. The car smoothly followed the route Max mapped out yesterday, navigating through the winding, bumpy paths, circling around from behind Anjiang Park. That meant we were soon to arrive in Z City. My mood was unusually calm. Outside the window was the Anjiang, and next to us was what used to be the largest hydropower station in K-City. Now, the river's surface had dropped several meters, exposing the embankments, and a thin layer of ice covered the river. I sighed slowly and said, do you think this apocalypse could be a warning from the heavens? The car was silent. Biscuit was asleep in the backseat, leaning against his computer. Max didn't respond. He was focused on driving. My phone vibrated. It was a text from my mom asking how I was. The signal was poor, so since our last call the day before yesterday, we had decided to check in via text periodically, and it took a long time for messages to send from the top right corner of my phone. I quietly typed, updating my mom about our safety. Do you have a place to stay in Z City? I turned to Max. He shook his head. Then you might as well stay at my place. Going to a government shelter would be inconvenient. He paused, then said, okay. As we passed a sign on the roadside, the bold black letters were clear, 1 kilometer to Z City. Ahead, many buses were queued up, each being checked at the checkpoint. And it was only 5:20 a.m. People inside the buses were all weeping soundlessly. My eyes moistened for the first time in 3 days upon seeing so many true survivors. On both sides of the road, numerous special police officers and volunteers stood, helping to transport injured people to hospitals. Sniffling, I choked up. We survived, didn't we? Max handed me another tissue, this time his fingertips no longer pale. Yes, we survived. Someone knocked on the car window. It was a volunteer checking identities. Please show your ID card for registration. The volunteer's voice sounded a bit old. Did you come here from K-City by yourselves? That must have been tough. I smiled at him, but paused when I caught sight of his face. Max, too, paused. Do you have a residence in Z City? Do you need a place from the government? The volunteer continued his routine questions, smiling when our eyes met. What is it? His face was familiar, like one from a photograph on a desk in a cement factory office. Nearby volunteers, more or less matched the names on the list on the back seat of our car. I couldn't help but ask, are you the CEO of Z City's Guoming Group? Yes, he replied with a resigned smile. I do what I can to help. As the car window closed, I seemed to hear his murmur, redemption. I lowered my eyes, feeling a mix of emotions. From the driver's seat, a mocking laugh came. Being a hero is tough. The information was yours to find. The decision is yours to make. I left that mess behind. My gaze meeting the figure across the checkpoint. The figure seemed to see me, waving and mouthing 2 words. My girl. I lifted the corners of my lips. Me, right now. I just want to survive. In the post-apocalyptic world, I truly survived, but perhaps because my nerves suddenly relaxed, I fell seriously ill after the disaster. The hospitals in City Z were all full, with many injured and refugees moving towards cities further north. To ensure the supply of electricity, water, and clear roads in City Z, the government ordered people to reduce going out. It felt just like the pandemic. After sleeping for 3 days, I got up from bed feeling groggy, opened the door, and there was Max, who had been chatting with my parents in the living room. Coming over to me, did you take your temperature? I shook my head. took the thermometer he handed me, and tucked it under my arm. He then handed me a cup of warm water. "Max is so considerate," my mom said enthusiastically, only to be pulled back by my dad, telling her not to stir things up. Max looked a bit uneasy. When I had a fever on the road, Phoebe took care of me just like this. My nose tingled, and I suddenly stood up. If I couldn't follow the main group, then I'd go alone. At my feet, something furry was rubbing against me, constantly meowing. Biscuit, my dad picked up the cat, his eyes crinkling with laughter. "We owe you a lot for staying by Phoebe's side these years. You are our family's hero. Here, have some dried fish as a reward." My mom followed my dad to the kitchen, laughing along. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I smiled. "Mom has been grilling you about your family tree these past few days, hasn't she? With a stranger, one indeed has to be cautious." Max followed me back to the room, then suddenly called out, "Phoebe." "What is it?" I turned to look at him. "That information, I've made it public." I nodded slightly, murmuring a soft looking out the window. The streets of City Z were lined with shady sycamore trees and a clear man-made lake in the distance, completely different from City K. No wonder, the border between City K and City Z felt like a huge, invisible, transparent barrier. One side was the apocalypse, the other hope. "There are two pieces of good news. Want to hear them?" "What?" Max looked at me, smiling. "First, the rescue team has reached the air raid shelter in Century Square, and that man is still alive." I smiled along. "And the second, the situation in City K is improving. The daytime maximum temperature has dropped to 56 degrees Celsius, and the nighttime minimum is above freezing, with the acidity of the rain also increasing. Experts predict that in at most half a year, City K could return to normal." "Nonsense." My gaze returned to the window. "That's clearly worth three pieces of good news." The sunlight filtered through the glass, warm on my skin, and the recent apocalypse felt as if it had been a century ago. I murmured, "Living really feels good." "Yes, to live is to hope." Story 2. As a wealthy second generation, I was blessed with both beauty and wealth. Despite my parents' advice to take life easy, I was determined to prove that I wasn't just a pretty face. After discussing it with my close friends, I decided to open a hot pot restaurant. However, 2 months into the business, I faced a staggering loss of $10 million and had over 100 employees depending on me. Realizing I often backed down when things got tough, I decided to close shop and return home to happily embrace being unproductive. Before closing, I invited my parents for a meal at the restaurant as an acknowledgement of my defeat. Unexpectedly, this move spared us from a zombie apocalypse. When the apocalypse struck, my hot pot restaurant turned into a safe haven for my family of 3. My dad said that as long as I didn't venture into business recklessly, our family wealth was sufficient to support a lavish lifestyle for 3 generations. But having come into this world, I was not content with being a rich second generation recognized only for my looks. To prove that I had some business acumen, I used my 10 years of saved up pocket money to start the hot pot restaurant. After thorough research and analysis, I chose a bomb shelter located halfway up a hill in the city center as the location. This bomb shelter stretched across an entire mountain and was 500 meters long, with one end opening onto a bustling street and the other overlooking a cliff by the river. The renovation alone cost $5 million, but I was determined to turn it into a trendy urban landmark. Sure enough, since its opening, the restaurant was packed daily, with queues from noon lasting till evening. Sometimes, when we were short-staffed, I had to step in and serve tables myself. After 2 months, I could visibly see myself getting rounder. Of course, some sacrifices were necessary for the sake of my career. At this rate, I expected my hot pot restaurant to flourish and generate a significant franchise fee within 6 months. However, just when I was starting to feel proud, the thriving business took a sudden nosedive. The long queues at the restaurant door vanished, and the few remaining customers complained about the overdecorated, expensive, and unappetizing dishes. Negative reviews flooded in relentlessly. A true warrior faces tough times head-on. Together with my best friend and marketing advisor Sarah, we reviewed the situation, nonchalantly picking at her nails. She mentioned, "It might be because of the 10,000 free meal vouchers I issued that just expired." "What? 10,000 free meal vouchers?" I couldn't believe it and had Sarah confirm it again. She nodded calmly. In that moment, my blood pressure soared, and I was too angry to speak. "This disastrous decision. Doing business means making sacrifices. You need to think big," she said. I cursed under my breath, regretting letting her handle marketing. It wasn't about the money. I was upset about my rough hands from serving plates. Whimpering, I noted my broken nails several times. "How about this? I immediately contact Group X and issue another 10,000 free meal vouchers, guaranteed to bring prosperity and wealth." I asked dispiritedly, "The kind of prosperity that rolls away from me?" "Oh, you don't understand. This is internet thinking, losing money to build a habit." I grabbed a handful of garlic and threw it at Sarah as she let out an exaggerated scream. "You and your internet thinking. I'm trying to run a business, not become a saint." Just then, The finance department reminded me that there was no money left to pay the salaries, and today was payday. I ran a large operation with top-notch service, employing over 100 staff each month. The payroll alone was a substantial sum. Now, I had run out of money. After the bold claims I had made, asking my family for help was out of the question. The employees looked at me with expectation. I was so overwhelmed that I nearly had a hormonal imbalance. Quick thinking. I grabbed Sarah's phone and transferred 100,000 to finance. It's convenient when best friends use the same password. Sarah was hopping mad, but there was no other choice. Grumblingly took away my prized Himalayan cat. Staring at the empty bank balance and more staff than customers, I slapped my thigh and made a bold decision. Swiftly, I wrote a sign and hung it on the door, "Business for sale." Even though the store manager repeatedly urged me to persevere, I decisively gave up. Acknowledging a mistake quickly and settling the bill is the posture of the strong. I am suited for water, not a hot pot restaurant. It's not shameful to lose money. Next time, I'll try a different line of business. I comfort myself with these thoughts. All the remaining money after paying salaries was given as severance to the staff. When opening the shop, it was bustling. When closing, it was done without dragging it out. After dismissing all the employees, I looked at the empty shop, feeling a bit melancholic. I was only a boss for 2 months. Wandering into the kitchen, I saw lots of unsold tripe, duck intestines, yellow throat, and luncheon meat. Wasting is shameful. I messaged my parents, "Dad, Mom, the place is all yours tonight. Make sure to come on time." Time seemed to accelerate today, in the middle of summer. It was only 6 p.m., yet the sky was already a deep black. Perhaps even the heavens felt sorry for my failed first venture. When my parents arrived, the spicy broth in front of me began to boil. Bubbles rose from the mix of chili and spices like pearls lifted by the heat, continuously bursting and releasing a tantalizing aroma. My mother, seeing how worn I looked, showed a pained expression and moved to hug me. But getting closer and seeing my greasy hair, she quickly stepped back, covering her nose and coughing to hide her disdain. "The hot pot here really smells good." Seeing her mixed expression of disdain and sympathy, I held back my laughter and urged them to eat quickly. My dad rolled up his sleeves and started cooking the tripe in the pot, not even glancing at me. "Say it. How much money do you need?" True to form, just as I was about to stand, he already guessed what I was up to. I didn't hesitate and gestured in front of him. 5 million, 1 million to pay back Sarah, and the remaining 4 million as my startup fund for the next venture. Hearing this, my dad immediately spit out the tripe he was eating. I knew I shouldn't have come. "Oh, Dad." Just as I was about to deploy my coquettish tactics, a car horn sounded at the door. I went out to see, and it was a disaster. I was so focused on dismissing the staff that I forgot to notify the suppliers to stop the deliveries. 500 kilograms of rice, 500 kilograms of flour, 50 barrels of cooking oil. "Boss, time to unload." And it didn't stop there. It was as if the suppliers had coordinated their timing, all arriving together within 15 minutes. I received 1,000 kilograms of hot pot base, 300 kilograms of potatoes, 300 kilograms of lettuce, 300 kilograms of tomatoes, 1,000 kilograms of carrots, 200 kilograms of various meatballs, 500 kilograms of pork, 500 kilograms of beef, 20 boxes of eggs, 100 lobsters, 100 king crabs. The menu's items were all delivered in massive quantities. Then another truck filled with various beverages arrived, and I was completely dumbfounded. The delivery guy expertly unloaded the goods, shouting at me, "Where's the staff? Come help unload." Looking at the boxes, I asked with a stiff face, "My shop is bankrupt. Can we return these?" The delivery guy's face immediately fell. "That's not possible. Your manager was rushing us this afternoon to confirm these orders multiple times. And now you can't just not take them." So that's how it was. When dismissing her, the manager thought I was short on her compensation, asking for an extra month's salary, but I really didn't have the extra money then and ignored her. Before she left, she threatened to make me regret this, and I didn't expect this was how she'd get back at me. Knowing I hate carrots, she still ordered 1,000 kilograms. Where does she live again? I'll deliver them all to her tomorrow. Faced with this mess, I could only look helplessly at my dad, his face grim. He signed a check and handed it to the suppliers, then went out and called back a dozen men from the street. It took them half an hour or two. After sorting the goods into their respective categories, the store was left with just me and my family, as employees had been let go, and the goods were piled high like mountains. Feeling utterly hopeless, and knowing that I could no longer ask my father for money, I returned to the table dejectedly. Under the light, the bright red hot pot broth shimmered slightly. My mind raced with thoughts on how to deal with all these goods. While leisurely enjoying the hot pot, my mom playfully winked at my dad and said, "Honey, I won. You owe me money." Annoyed, my dad chugged a beer and reluctantly transferred 520 yuan to her. Curious, I asked, "What did you bet on?" My mom, gleefully collecting the money, turned to me and explained, "I bet your dad that you'd go bankrupt in less than 3 months." Your dad didn't believe it, claiming that his kid could last at least half a year. See, I won. You really are my little treasure. She laughed uproariously, causing me to grimace in embarrassment. My dad, slightly annoyed, retorted, not a bit of business sense. I wonder who you take after. Don't look at me. It definitely isn't from my side, my mom said, waving her hands dismissively, feeling underestimated. I was a bit angry, but at that moment, the best option was to admit defeat. I'm sorry, Dad, I've let you down, I said, feeling ashamed. Seeing my dad's expression soften, I seized the opportunity to press my luck. Could you possibly lend me another 500? The moment he reached for his phone, I thought I had a chance, but then he immediately blocked me. Meanwhile, my mom kept adding food to my bowl and giving my dad meaningful glances as if to tell him to ease up, comforting me with, "Don't worry, you'll make it in a few more years." What? A few more years, suddenly. The chicken feet in my bowl didn't seem appetizing anymore. Just then, several harrowing screams echoed from outside. Startled, I dropped my chopsticks, and the cooked duck intestines fell back into the pot, irretrievable. The cries and screams mixed with the sporadic honking of cars. Was there an accident? I wondered. Walking to the door with my bowl in hand, I saw people across the street running in panic, chased by several blood-covered, oddly walking individuals. Their growls were chilling. Like ferocious beasts on the prowl, ruthlessly attacking pedestrians, blood splattering everywhere. Staring in disbelief, I dropped my bowl and utensils, letting out a scream of terror. My scream drew the attention of one of the creatures, which growled and charged straight towards me, frozen in place, my mind filled with scenes from The Walking Dead. Damn, these are zombies. In a flash, a zombie reached the entrance of the hot pot restaurant, just a few steps from me, hearing my scream. My dad quickly put down his utensils and rushed over to pull me aside. He then hurried to the glass door and managed to shut it just as the zombie lunged, narrowly saving my life. Through the glass, I saw the twisted, ferocious face of the zombie, its fangs glinting under the light. My mom came running over with a mop, shouting that she wanted to help. However, after locking eyes with the zombie, she fainted right in front of me. The zombie relentlessly attacked the glass door, attempting to squeeze through the cracks. The glass was smeared with the zombie's blood and handprints, and the stench and madness kept seeping in. My dad was desperately holding back the glass door, gasping for air as he yelled at me. The rolling door, close the rolling door quickly. It was as if I woke from a trance, scrambling over to the bar to find the remote for the rolling door. The rolling door was outside the glass door, and with zombies outside, I wasn't sure if I could close it successfully. I nervously watched as the electric rolling door slowly descended, fearing it would break halfway down due to the zombies' assault, as I feared. When the door was about a third of the way closed, it jammed. Sweating profusely and anxious, I looked desperately at my dad. "It's jammed," swearing. My dad hesitated before opening the glass door halfway. "What are you doing, Dad?" I whispered in shock. Was he planning to sacrifice himself to the zombies? The situation didn't seem that desperate yet. Ignoring me, he fumbled for the rolling door's manual clutch. Clenching his teeth, he pulled it down hard, and finally managed to completely close the rolling door. Both doors together acted like a solid barrier, keeping the zombie outside. Through the door's surveillance monitor, I saw that after the rolling door was shut, the zombie gradually stopped its attack. I stared intently at the screen, my heart pounding like the beats of a war drum echoing in the empty hot pot restaurant. After loitering at the door for a while, the zombie wandered off aimlessly into the crowd like a headless fly, attacking any living person that passed by. I breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed they were only interested in visible creatures. Glancing at the screen, my heart, which had just relaxed, tensed up again. The pedestrians who had been bitten and lay dead on the ground were now standing up, their bodies broken. They staggered aimlessly, seemingly without any particular target. They've turned into zombies too? I asked, trembling, watching the screen. My father's expression darkened. It seems that the living, once bitten, also turn into monsters. I took a step back in horror, looking towards the door, overcome with dread. The hot pot restaurant was quiet, filled only with the sound of mine and my dad's breathing, and the soft snoring of my mom, who had fainted. My dad quickly carried my mom to the sofa and carefully wiped her face clean with a towel. As she slowly woke from her faint, she burrowed into my dad's arms. "Honey, I just had a dream, Mom." "That wasn't a dream," I said as I handed her my phone. The internet was in an uproar. Zombie biting incidents had erupted all over the world. People didn't turn immediately after being bitten. Depending on the severity of their wounds, there was a latent period ranging from a few minutes to several hours. As a result, many bitten people had blended into the healthy population, leading to even larger-scale mutations. No one knew if the people around them had been bitten. Trust collapsed in an instant, and everyone was fearful for themselves. In just a few hours, The whole world seemed like a hell on earth. The government had issued emergency notices, urging everyone to lock their doors and windows and to avoid going out. I clutched my phone tightly, the news on the screen unsettling me. Sarah's phone had been unreachable, and I dreaded to think what might have happened to her. My dad immediately arranged finances, sending 100,000 to each of the surviving staff members to stock up on supplies. At the same time, he was constantly sending large red envelopes in the company group chat, but there were very few people grabbing them. We all knew very well that under such circumstances, order had already collapsed and money was the least useful thing. My mom was crying and murmuring, "Everything was fine this afternoon. How did it turn out like this?" I wiped away my tears and asked my dad with faint calm, "What do we do now?" My dad didn't answer me, he just held my mom, staring intently at the door outside. After a long time, he finally spoke slowly. "We wait. Wait for what?" My mom asked. "Wait for rescue," my dad replied. I was stunned for a moment, looking at my dad. Will there be a rescue? Such a question, in post-apocalyptic novels, is the most foolish. But now, we are not in a book, we are in reality, in the face of such sudden disasters. Even if the state wants to conduct a rescue, it needs time, although the government is trying its best to respond. The current situation seems to be beyond control. Don't worry, we have a room full of food. There's nothing to fear, my dad said with rare tenderness, gently reassuring us. I then realized that we were guarding an excellent refuge. This air raid shelter has only one exit, which is now closed by 2 doors, so it's temporarily safe. The other end is a cliff, so there's no need to worry about zombies climbing up from that side. And those goods that were giving me a headache earlier have now become our confidence to survive. Come on, let me give you a tour, I said, trying to lighten the mood as I stood up to show my parents around the hot pot restaurant. The 500-meter deep air raid shelter is shaped like a lollipop. The entrance is very spacious, leading to a long, narrow corridor. The decor is themed around the Republican era, divided into areas for food preparation, dining, sightseeing, and resting. Adapted to fit the location, the entrance is wide and open, roughly 200 square meters. It's been turned into a reception hall, kitchen, and a lively seafood display area. Right at the entrance is the reception hall, filled with a retro vibe, furnished with classical sofas and stools, colorful glazed lamps, and simulated wooden doors and windows. Under the lighting, seem to transport you to a city from the Republican era. But now, it's piled high with boxes of beverages. To the left of the reception is a large open kitchen, with its own cold storage and preparation areas. To the right, the lively seafood display area, now also filled with shrimp, crabs, and fish. Further inside is the dining area, over 200 meters in length. The tunnel is about 4 meters wide, with tables and chairs on one side, while the other wall is filled with hot pot bases and self-heating hot pots for sale. I originally intended for customers to eat and perhaps buy some to take home. But in reality, a lot got taken. Every 50 meters, there's a separate restroom with its own drainage, ensuring no congestion during peak dining times. Then, you pass through a 200-meter-long corridor. This hallway represents the historical and cultural life of the Republican city through text, pictures, and items. I've also prepared period costumes for visitors to take photos. At the end of the hallway, I've installed a large door. Behind this door is the staff rest area and my personal space. With the mindset of retiring with the hot pot restaurant, I moved almost half of my home here. The passage leads in, then diverges left and right. Here, we have a bathroom, gym, mahjong room, staff rest area, my bedroom, a dressing room, and a reading room, though small. The place is fully equipped with all life necessities. And there's definitely enough clothing for me and my mom to change into. We have enough sanitary pads to last us both for half a year. The only issue is for my dad, who doesn't have a razor or spare clothes. I had to make do with those clothes meant for taking photos. As my mom turned around, she didn't hold back on the compliments. "Baby, you're so smart, choosing such a great place. You definitely got that from me." My dad muttered under his breath, "That's not what you said just now, Mom." "Really? I don't believe it." All right, let me show you what a great place looks like." I led them to the entrance of the cave, as if opening the gates to a new world. I often lean against the railing here to enjoy the river scenery, beautiful both day and night, but at this moment, all I could see was shock, and all I could hear was despair. "Wow, there's water here." My mom discovered the spring at the cave's entrance. In the corner of the entrance, a mountain spring slowly emerged. The spring water was ice-cold and clear. I had it tested. It's rich in minerals and excellent for drinking. During the renovation, we used local resources and diverted this water to the kitchen and bathroom for daily use. My mom happily scooped up some water to drink and smacked her lips, commenting, "This water is really good. It was used to flush the toilets before." She spat out the water in surprise, spraying my face. I grimaced and wiped my face, regretting telling the truth. After the tour, We checked the supplies. We already had a substantial stock, plus the goods that were just delivered. We had about 1,300 pounds of darned carrots, 700 pounds of rice, 600 pounds of flour, 80 barrels of cooking oil, 1,200 pounds of hot pot base, 400 pounds of potatoes, 350 pounds of Chinese lettuce, 500 pounds of tomatoes, tripe, duck intestines, yellow throat, fat intestines, pork, beef, lamb meatballs, chicken, duck, all stuffed in the cold storage, and countless lobsters, king crabs, grouper fish. My goodness, are there mushrooms and vegetables too? My mom exclaimed again. She saw the live vegetable pots displayed on the kitchen shelves. The store used to supply live vegetables, so mushrooms, bean sprouts, and bok choy were all delivered with their pots. Customers could eat and pick them fresh, which was a unique selling point. As customer traffic decreased, we stopped restocking, but some were still displayed in the kitchen under lights. We didn't know how long we'd be trapped, so we needed to take great care of these little seedlings. After inventorying the supplies, the three of us sat on the ground, catching our breath. Complete variety, fresh dishes, indeed high cost. No wonder it's losing so much money. I couldn't tell if my mom was criticizing or complimenting me. We had a fortress-like shelter, with ample food. We could last a year or more without any issues, but I still couldn't contact Sarah, and that was really bothering me. If I hadn't let her go this afternoon, it would have been nice to have her stay here. My dad frowned, pointing out a serious issue. Everything looks fine for now, but once the power goes out, the food will spoil. Dad's concern was valid. In our sunless bunker, we relied on electricity for lighting and food storage. If power was cut off, this dark, narrow cave would become a dire place, given the chaos outside. A power outage was likely sooner or later, though we had a diesel generator. Once the diesel ran out, we couldn't avoid the predicament of losing power. The dozens of shared power banks on the bar could only charge phones. Fortunately, the bunker was constantly at around 24 degrees Celsius. When renovating, we heavily designed the ventilation system, so even if the power went out, air circulation in the cave wouldn't be hindered. Moreover, the two doors at the entrance aren't sturdy enough. We'll need to find a way to reinforce it, not just against zombies, but against people as well. I glanced toward the door. The dried blood on the glass door was still unsettling. It was now 2 a.m., and we were all exhausted, barely able to think straight. We decided to get some sleep first and discuss our plans at length tomorrow. After washing up, I lay between my parents, insisting on not leaving them. I had originally planned to give my bed to them and sleep on the bunk bed in the staff dormitory, but then I reconsidered. What if you guys end up having another child? At 22, having a younger brother or sister wouldn't be embarrassing, but the idea of childbirth in a bunker, especially with my mom being of advanced maternal age, was just too dangerous. What are you thinking, you silly rabbit? My dad said sternly, poking my head with his finger and shoving me aside. My mom glared at me and then burst out laughing. That's not a bad idea. If only your dad hadn't had a vasectomy, otherwise I would have opened a small account to practice by now, my dad added dryly, disliking me so much. Should I just leave? I pretended to be angry and started to sit up to leave. My dad quickly pushed me back down and fetched some bedding from the staff dormitory to lay beside the bed. In times like these, the family should stick together. He pointed to the floor bed. You sleep there. After a night of rest, we got busy early the next morning. My dad dug out the toolbox left over from a previous renovation and dismantled the hot pot table and benches. He then used nails to join the planks and make a door-sized panel, like patching up a quilt. He stacked several thick layers and sealed the door securely. The noise we made inside attracted nearby zombies. It seemed that these creatures were very sensitive to sounds. Through the security camera, we saw zombies circling the door after hearing the noises, but unable to locate the source, which made them visibly agitated. Out of curiosity, my mom wanted to take a closer look at the zombies that had frightened her, but I quickly turned off the screen. Sorry, Mom, I really don't trust your nerves. Seeing that the zombies weren't attacking the roll-up door, my dad sped up his work, nailing boldly. My mom and I together moved crates of beer, soft drinks, and mineral water to the entrance. Stacking them into a thick wall, we piled it up, layer upon layer. Unless someone used a bulldozer, not even a fly could get through. Only when our stomachs began growling did we realize we hadn't eaten all day. I went to the kitchen to bring out the leftover dishes, lit the stove, and prepared for another hot pot meal. Hot pot again, my mom complained, her face sour, as a wellness enthusiast. She usually avoided hot pot, and having it 2 days in a row was too much for her. Being picky in such times seemed a bit ungrateful. If it weren't for my beloved daughter's hot pot restaurant, our family of 3 might have already become a feast for the zombies. I spoke to her sternly. Are you eating or not? If you don't eat, then I'll make it a split pot. My mom didn't hesitate and nodded vigorously. My dad, clearly starving, ignored our banter and devoured his food. After quickly finishing our meal, my dad, wiping sweat, said, "This afternoon, we need to deal with the meat, better make it into jerky to keep it longer." My mom's eyes shone with admiration, looking at my dad like a fan. "Why didn't I think of that? Honey, you really are a strategic thinker." My mom complimented my dad. She was always good at buttering people up. That's how she managed to boss my dad around for over 2 decades. After dinner, we started processing the meat, but the reality was, my dad was all theory and no practice. None of the three of us knew how to cook. We couldn't even cut meat properly. We clumsily followed a video, cutting the meat into sticks, then salting it and finally baking it in the oven. The oven was small, but we made do with what we could. Inspired after making beef jerky with a food blogger's video, my mom started searching for cooking tutorials on her phone. She downloaded what she could and took detailed notes on what she couldn't download. Every now and then she'd ask me, "Honey, what do you feel like eating?" "Lobsters. I want big lobsters." Seeing my mom take notes so diligently really moved me. She had never cooked in her life, but now the circumstances forced her to try her hand at cooking. I silently vowed to myself that no matter how bad her cooking turned out, I would clean my plate completely. My dad and I struggled through the afternoon and barely managed to process around 100 pounds of beef. As dinner time approached, my mom showed me a few videos she had picked out. "I don't need to watch. I'll love whatever you cook," I said sweetly. My mom stared at me with wide eyes. "What are you thinking, sweetie? These videos are for you." "For me?" I pointed at myself and then at the videos. "It's all your favorite dishes. Pick whatever you want to eat and give it a try." My mom handed me her phone, loaded with cooking videos, and went off to flatter my dad. I felt like crying. Was this all meant for me? "Do you think I can do it?" I asked, not giving up hope. "Out of the three of us, you're the one who has worked in catering. You're practically a chef, darling. Cheer up," my mom encouraged. "Look at your wife, bullying your daughter." I said to my dad, "You ran a restaurant for 2 months. You should have picked up something by now." My dad retorted, "I should have realized earlier, my parents are a team. And I was an accident. I fetched 3 big lobsters, 3 king crabs, and 2 abalones from the aquarium, planning to cook them in the simplest way possible, boiling them in water, turning on the commercial stove. I was startled by the fierce flames. My dad leaned over and said, "Be careful, don't set the kitchen on fire. Some kids are the apple of their parents' eye. I guess I'm just a lump in their life." The tutorial said that lobsters need to be urinated before cooking, which shocked me. I read it several times. Does that mean all the lobsters I ate before were urinated? Feeling nauseous, I nearly threw up, which scared my mom. "What kind of tutorial did you find, Mom? Cooking lobsters involves urination. That's disgusting." I was quite puzzled too. My mom said, "Honey, whose urine do you think is best?" My dad took several deep breaths, trying to control his emotions. Then he took a lobster from my hand, poked its tail with chopsticks, and fluid flowed out. "It's this kind of urination," he explained. "Oh, I see." I suddenly realized and sincerely said, "Dad, you really know a lot." My mom chuckled and said that cooking was quite a hassle and asked if we should just continue with hot pot. My dad ignored her suggestion, took over the task from me, and started to get busy following a video. Watching my dad clumsily cooking, I couldn't help but think that I must marry someone who knows how to cook. Half an hour later, my dad served the dishes he had prepared: boiled king crab, boiled Australian lobster, and boiled abalone in clear water. Even the dishes he chose were exactly what I had in mind. This is definitely my real dad. In that moment, I really wanted to open a bottle of Maute and give a shout. Come on. As days passed, we became more skilled. We turned most of the pork and beef into jerky, hanging it at the ventilation duct. We also tried making jarred meat, though we had no jars. We had to fry the pork and then cool it down with the oil before storing it in plastic containers. As our knife skills improved, we sliced potatoes and lettuce and dried them in the sun near the cliff edge. We shredded cabbage and placed it in empty oil drums to make northeastern sauerkraut. We also simmered some tomatoes into sauce and stored it in empty beer bottles. Well, we'll keep it as long as it lasts. Not knowing how long we would have to endure, I also dried some carrots. Despite my dislike for them, we tried to eat perishables first. Anything that spoiled and couldn't be eaten was thrown off the cliff along with other garbage. Gradually getting used to this lifestyle, our tense nerves relaxed, and our days seemed to revolve just around eating and sleeping. My dad's cooking skills greatly improved, unlocking various cooking techniques every day. My mom and I flattered him shamelessly to keep him in a good mood. I feel like after this disaster, my dad could even start a food blog, only, this food blogger's current look is a bit like a wild man. My dad hasn't shaved in nearly a month. At this rate, he could braid his beard. "Dad, I think this style really suits you," I said, leaning on the kitchen doorway watching him busy cooking. "Look at whose husband he is," my mom said, always indirectly praising herself. My dad stroked his beard and said, "I really should shave. Otherwise I'll start looking like your grandfather." With what shall we shave? My mom asked. I raised the kitchen knife and asked, how about this? You're trying to kill your father, my dad joked, stepping back in faint fear. Just as my mom and I were discussing the feasibility of using a kitchen knife for shaving, my dad suddenly told us to hush. Listen, someone is tampering with the shutter door. I thought it was a zombie and hurried to check the surveillance, only to be shocked. A van was parked in front of the hot pot restaurant. Outside the shutter door were two men and a woman. I recognized the woman at a glance. She was Lauren, the manager of the hot pot restaurant. One of the men was trying to open the shutter door. Lauren and the other man, holding axes, adopted defensive postures and cautiously scanned their surroundings. Not far away, a decapitated zombie lay on the ground. Had they killed that zombie? I shivered and quickly called my dad over. Seeing the scene, my dad exclaimed that it was a bad time. It was noon, and from our observations over the days, zombies are sensitive to sunlight. When the sun is strong, they hide in the shade and move slowly. Many survivors had noticed this and started venturing out to look for supplies during these times. Lauren and her companions were probably hoping to take advantage of this time to get something from the hot pot restaurant. We watched nervously, observing every move of the people outside. The damn door's jammed. Cursed the man trying to open it. The roller door was jammed by my dad. Not an easy task to open. Lauren handed the man an axe, urging him to use it to break in. Are you insane? That'll bring all the zombies here. The man clearly disagreed with her suggestion. It's death by starvation or death by zombies. Either way, we're dead if you don't hack it open. And what if there's nothing inside after we break in? That's impossible. I ordered a lot of stuff back then just to spite Mila. As they began chopping, the metal door screeched sharply under the assault. Several zombies, attracted by the noise, started moving slowly towards them, but given the zombies' current agility, they could easily be dispatched with the axe. Once they broke through the security door and the glass, all the wood and beer cans we had nailed up inside would hardly hold them back. Should we give them something to make them stop chopping? My mom suggested. No way. Without hesitation, my dad and I simultaneously refused the suggestion. In the apocalypse, human nature is more terrifying than zombies. They can kill zombies, and they can kill humans too. In times of scarcity, some people only look out for their own interests, completely disregarding the lives of others. Revealing your supplies at such times is like turning yourself into a walking target. We only had kitchen knives, no other weapons. Once exposed, it would be hard to protect ourselves. The metal shutter door was quickly chopped open, and through the gap, the nailed-down table boards could be seen. A flicker of confusion crossed Lauren's face, but it soon turned ruthless as she shouted at the camera. Mila, you're in there, aren't you? Hoarding all those supplies, lucky you. Just open the door nicely and share them. Lauren was almost certain we were inside. Seeing that I didn't respond, she kicked the shutter door impatiently. A cunning look flashed in her eyes, and she told the men to stop chopping. After a low discussion, one of the men returned to the van and reversed it to the front of the shop. This is bad. They're going to ram us, I shouted, my voice shaking. But there was no way to stop it. The van slammed into the door with a loud crash. This was followed by the sound of shattering glass. My dad, wielding a kitchen knife, shielded my mom and me, ready for a desperate fight. We braced for the van's second impact, but suddenly there was silence outside. Then, a scream echoed. Through the surveillance, I saw the man who had been standing at the door with Lauren fall to the ground, as several zombies tore into his body. The weather, which had been sunny, now turned gloomy. The commotion here had already attracted many zombies, and with the weather turning, groups of them started moving our way. The man in the van immediately turned around and sped away. Lauren followed the van for a while but ultimately couldn't escape the zombies' grasp. Unexpectedly, it was the zombies who inadvertently saved our lives. A few minutes later, she got up from the ground. Only half of her face remained, and her body moved in strange ways, perhaps out of reluctance. Lauren, now a zombie, kept wandering around the entrance of the hot pot restaurant. Well, from a manager in life to a security guard in death, having narrowly escaped, we could no longer relax as before. No matter how well we barricaded the door, it could only fend off zombies. Against humans, especially those armed, we were truly helpless. The man who fled now knew we had supplies, who knew when he might return. At least he won't come tonight, my dad said. Indeed, the night is when zombies are most active. He would have to wait until tomorrow noon if he were to come again. My mom was very nervous, now fearing humans more than zombies. He might have been devoured by zombies. I comforted her, although it wasn't nice to say. In a kill-or-be-killed situation, it was better him than us. Just then, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. After nearly 3 weeks, the electricity and network completely failed. My father turned on the diesel generator to power the cold storage. We huddled in the room, reluctant to turn on any lights. In the pitch-dark air raid shelter, every sense felt magnified. The darkness was like a cage, trapping us in an inescapable nightmare, filling us with a sense of oppression and anxiety. Thankfully, my mother tore strips of cotton clothing and twisted them into wicks, which she then soaked in rapeseed oil. She poured some oil into a dish, placed the cotton wick inside, and lit it, creating a simple oil lamp. We sat around the lamp, watching the flames dance and listening to the sound of the fire. It helped us momentarily forget the terror and unease outside, reminding us that we were still alive and there was still hope. "Mom, you're really something," I said as the soft glow of the flame illuminated my mother's proud expression. "Of course, don't you know who she married?" my dad joked, boasting like my mom. "Help, I'm not used to this kind of dad." The three of us fell asleep amidst fear and anxiety. In the middle of the night, I suddenly heard rustling noises at the entrance of the shelter. My heart raced, nearly leaping to my throat. I cautiously peered down. By the faint moonlight, I saw a figure struggling to climb up. Could it be Lauren and her group? I had always thought this cliff was too steep for zombies to climb, making it safe enough. I never expected a person to be climbing it. Fortunately, there was only one person, and given the easily defensible position, they shouldn't be tough to handle, holding a long stick and my dad armed with a kitchen knife. We quietly crouched on either side of the entrance. We prepared to strike a fatal blow as soon as the person climbed up. My nerves were tense, the stick in my hand damp with sweat. Moments later, the figure's head appeared. My dad and I exchanged glances. We quickly moved towards it, raising the stick to push him down. Mila, are you asleep? Help me up, Mila." I froze, the stick hanging in midair. Why did the voice sound so familiar? Sarah. It was Sarah's voice. My dad and I were stunned. "Sarah, is that you?" "It's me. Thank God you're not asleep. Help me up." Sarah's voice was weak. My dad and I quickly dropped what we were holding and grabbed Sarah's arms, pulling her up. Sarah collapsed on me, exhausted from the climb. I hugged Sarah, crying and laughing, thinking I'd never see her again. "But you really stink." After the joy of reunion, I was overwhelmed by the smell emanating from Sarah. She smelled like a spoiled bun. "Since the zombie outbreak, I haven't had a bath. How could I not stink?" Sarah sniffed her arm and couldn't help but grimace. Her eyes caught the kitchen knife on the ground and she asked exaggeratedly, "Were you guys really planning to chop me?" My mom brought Sarah some hot water, her hands trembling as she took small sips. "It's a good thing you made a sound, otherwise we really would have pushed you down." Thinking about it, I felt a chill. Had we moved a little faster, she might have fallen and been smashed to pieces. "How did you manage to climb up here? It's so dangerous. Can you translate these paragraphs into English? Make sure the translation isn't too literal," my mom asked. She usually didn't dare look down, let alone imagine how to climb up from below. Sarah pouted, asking in a distressed tone, "Is there anything to eat? I'm starving." My parents hurriedly jogged to the kitchen to prepare some food for Sarah. I supported her as we walked over, feeling her eagerness mixed with a sense of helplessness. The few hundred meters to the dining area felt even longer to her than the recent climb up the cliff. Reaching the dining area, she grabbed a self-heating hot pot and was about to dig in. I quickly stopped her. "Hold on, just hold on a bit." The delicious hot pot was served by my dad, and Sarah's tears uncontrollably started to roll down her cheeks. "And there's king crab too. Oh my, this is just too much." Sarah didn't hold back, grabbing the chopsticks and starting to devour the food hungrily. After having her fill, she began to talk about her miserable experiences over the past few days. When the zombie outbreak happened, she was at a convenience store with her boyfriend, planning to buy some snacks. In the ensuing chaos, her boyfriend abandoned her and ran away, leaving her trapped in the convenience store for days. Hearing this, I was furious. I always said that guy was no good. Look on the bright side, he might have been torn apart by zombies by now. Sarah said nonchalantly, "I thought you were dead because you didn't reply to my messages," I said, tears swirling in my eyes. "I wanted to reply as soon as I saw your message, but my phone got smashed before I could send it, the day before yesterday." When the convenience store was looted empty, she was so hungry she took a risk to come find me. "You're too bold. Climbing up like that was so dangerous." My mom looked at Sarah, her face gaunt and her hands full of scars, her eyes full of sorrow. "It's a miracle she wasn't eaten by zombies or fell to her death on her way here. What could I do? There were so many security guards patrolling your entrance." Sarah pointed towards the door. "You mean there are a lot of zombies at the entrance?" I asked. With the power and internet down, we couldn't see the situation at the entrance, and I thought it was just Lauren, one of the zombies, hanging around. Exactly, a bunch of male zombies were following a female zombie around. I was genuinely impressed. Lauren really was a manager through and through, even as a zombie. Her leadership skills stood out. "It looks like we're safe for now," my dad said. I knew what he meant. Even if robbers came, the zombies at the door would deter them. With Sarah joining us, our mahjong games were finally no longer short of one player. The person who lost the most was in charge of cooking and washing dishes. Sarah and I stood no chance against my dad, always losing badly. He would chide me for not using my brain while playing, but he would still prepare the meal. Given the scarcity of food, he didn't dare to really make us starve. Sometimes Sarah couldn't help but feel sad. I knew she was missing her parents when the outbreak occurred. Her parents were abroad, and it was unknown whether they were still alive. Before we knew it, 3 months had passed since the zombie outbreak began. As November approached, the weather gradually cooled down, the diesel generator had long been silent, and the gas cylinders in the kitchen were also exhausted, although the cave's constant temperature eliminated the need for heating. Guarding our supplies without fuel to cook made our moods quite heavy, technically. The furniture in the store could be dismantled for firewood, but we were worried that the smoke from a fire might attract unwanted attention, so we only dared to make a small fire at night to cook, and during the day, we ate self-heating hot pots. If we didn't want to eat those, we'd just wait and cook a meal at night. We didn't lack water, reluctant to waste firewood on heating water. We hadn't bathed in a long time. The spring water by the cave entrance was too icy, and as the weather cooled, even a brief touch was enough to make us shiver. Fortunately, we didn't sweat much, so we weren't too smelly. My mom, always particular about cleanliness, really struggled with how unkempt we had become. Taking advantage of the residual heat from the evening's cooking fire, she managed to warm some lukewarm water for a bath. She even washed her hair. A sense of foreboding rose in me. Sure enough, my mom developed a fever in the middle of the night. The hot pot restaurant had everything except medicine. My dad kept trying to cool her down with a damp towel all night, but it barely helped. I prayed that her immune system would pull her through, but the high fever persisted, and her consciousness began to blur. We were frantic with worry. "It's all my fault," I lamented. I had prepared everything, but had neglected to bring common medications. "Don't say that. We're not gods. We can't foresee everything," Sarah consoled me. "Should I climb down the cliff to get some medicine?" I proposed. But my dad immediately vetoed the idea. "It was a fluke that Sarah made it up here," he said. "We don't have the proper equipment to risk it," he added. After speaking, my dad looked silently at the cave entrance, frowning. I knew there was a pharmacy directly opposite the hot pot restaurant. Only a road lay between us, less than 100 meters from the main entrance, the quickest way to get medicine. But outside weren't just a few zombies. Facing them was no simpler than confronting a sheer cliff. "What were our chances if we went out? I'll figure something out," my dad said. Starting to prepare weapons, he sharpened a kitchen knife until it was sufficiently lethal and then secured it to a stick with some rope to extend its reach. He swung it a few times in front of us. It seemed effective. Then he made another one and handed it to me. "Try this," he continued without pause, moving beer crates to block the door. After moving the crates, he began to dismantle some wooden planks, only removing enough to allow one person to fit through. The glass door had already been shattered by Lauren and her group, so we only needed to lift the roll-up door slightly to crawl under. However, the roll-up door had been so battered that my dad struggled to open even a small gap. Fortunately, the zombies, lacking intelligence, only knew to ram the door without checking underneath. But once someone crawled out, they wouldn't last 3 seconds. As my dad prepared, he instructed me, "After I go out, you and Sarah bring over the boxes to block the gap. If I'm not back in 2 hours, nail the entrance shut." I clung tightly to my dad's hand, not letting him go. He looked at me for a long while, then pulled away and caressed my head, his voice choked with emotion. "Listen to me. Take care of your mom and survive until help arrives." I bit my lip hard, tears silently streaming down my face. My dad's venture outside was fraught with danger, but my mom's situation was urgent. Watching him, I saw him take a piece of beef that had rotted due to the power outage. He lay down at the door and threw the meat outside with all his might. The zombies, drawn by the smell, swarmed towards it, and my dad seized the moment to slip out. I looked at Sarah. She understood what I was planning to do, and although she didn't agree, she nodded at me. "Take this." Sarah handed me the kitchen knife my dad had given me. I also grabbed a few pieces of rotten meat, in a desperate attempt to distract the zombies. My dad lay flat, throwing meat out the door crack, however, lacking strength. I couldn't throw it far enough. The zombies initially chasing him were diverted by the meat momentarily. As I stealthily made my way out, I sprinted towards where my dad had gone. The biting cold wind felt as if I was inhaling icy blades. The zombies, realizing a living person was nearby, began to chase after me. Despite it being daytime, with the overcast sky dimming the sunlight, the zombies remained agile. 5 zombies were tailing me, including Lauren and 4 others, all men. Lauren, even as a zombie, hadn't forgotten our old disputes and persistently chased me. I dashed towards the pharmacy, with the zombies closely on my heels. Realizing I might be dragging the zombies towards my dad, I quickly altered my strategy and turned back, leading the zombies away. I ran circles, trying my hardest to buy time for my dad. He reached the pharmacy entrance and turned just in time to see me being chased, his face filled with horror. I yelled to him, "Dad, don't worry about me, just go get the medicine." But without hesitation, he rushed over and swung his homemade long-handled cleaver at one of the zombies, severing its decaying arm. The creature, seemingly unfazed, lunged at him with a grotesque snarl. Remembering a previously decapitated zombie, I shouted, "Chop off its head." Realizing this, my dad raised his cleaver and cleanly decapitated the zombie, which immediately fell. That's when I remembered I had a knife too. Why run when I can fight, I thought, but my knife skills were poor. I swung wildly at the air, merely injuring another zombie without killing it. Suddenly, I smelled a foul stench behind me. Turning slightly, I saw zombie Lauren about to bite my shoulder. Just my luck, falling into her hands, I thought. Just as her mouth touched my shoulder, my dad kicked her down and decisively finished her off with another strike. He grabbed me, and we continued running towards the pharmacy, admonishing me as we ran. "Are you trying to get yourself killed? How would I explain this to your mom?" This silenced him too. Inside the pharmacy, chaos reigned, and I didn't know where to find the necessary medicine. After dealing with 2 more zombies using our newfound combat experience, my dad packed whatever he could into his backpack. "Can't be choosy now. Just grab everything." Many zombies, attracted by our scent, were slowly converging on us. We had to leave quickly, or risk being trapped and either devoured or starved to death. Reluctantly, I searched the shelves near the entrance and finally found some anti-inflammatory and fever-reducing medications. When we left the pharmacy, the number of zombies on the street had tripled. It wasn't certain we could fight our way through them all. Exchanging a glance with my dad, we both charged out together, as the zombies, having not seen fresh prey in a while, excitedly converged towards us, roaring, as we sprinted and fought. The mere 100 meters felt as marathon-like in its length. As we neared the cave entrance, Sarah threw a bag of foul meat out and yelled to me from inside, "Mila, use this to lure them away." My dad picked up the meat and hurled it at the zombies. He threw bits in all directions, buying us a brief moment to escape. It wasn't until we were all safely back inside the store and had pulled down the roller door, blocking the entrance, that my legs gave way and I collapsed to the floor, without pausing. My dad rushed to my mom with the medicine. Sarah tried to help me up, but I gestured for her to let me lie down a bit longer. It felt good to just lie there. After resting for a while, Sarah and I walked to the room, unsure if the medicine had helped Mom. Her forehead still felt hot. Seeing my worry, Sarah couldn't help but laugh and cry. "It's not a miracle cure. These things take time. Where's Dad?" It was then I realized I hadn't seen him since he went to give my mom the medicine. He must have been exhausted and gone to rest somewhere. I was about to fetch some cool spring water to use as a cold compress for my mom when I saw my dad, one leg over the railing, looking like he was about to jump. "Dad, what are you doing?" I cried out. "Stay back." He panicked a bit seeing me suddenly. Ignoring his plea, I ran over and grabbed his other leg, holding on tightly. "Are you possessed? We just escaped death. Why climb so high, sweetheart? Let go." Taking deep breaths, my dad tried to calm his voice and told me he had been bitten by a zombie. In the chaos of saving me, when he kicked the zombie Lauren, it managed to bite his calf. He hadn't noticed at the time, but soon after he felt a severe burning sensation. The wound had started to rot, and it wouldn't be long before the virus spread throughout his body, turning him into a zombie. "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have caused more trouble." I wept bitterly, blaming myself for my dad's fate. "How can you blame yourself? If it weren't for your help, I might not have gotten the medicine. I don't care. Even if you turn into a zombie, you're still my dad. If it comes to it, we'll all become zombies together. If you jump, I'll jump too." Hearing the commotion, Sarah quickly came over and helped me pull my dad down. He was already weak from the exertion and the spreading virus. I rolled up his trouser leg and saw the frighteningly hot bite. On a desperate impulse, I submerged his calf in the cold, bone-chilling spring water of the little pond. The cool water brought down the temperature of the wound. My dad's brows relaxed, and he fell asleep. Sarah and I carried him to the staff dormitory and locked him in, just in case he turned into a zombie. I decided to keep him there. After all, we still had plenty of foul meat. Maybe there was hope for a vaccine. As night turned into day, my mom's fever finally broke. Her first question upon waking was, "Where's your dad?" I didn't have the heart to tell her that by now. Dad might already be a zombie, but Dad had always been strong-willed. Has silence become eerie? Sarah's screams echoed from the doorway, signaling trouble. I rushed out immediately. I found Sarah crouched on the ground, Visibly terrified, my father was standing in front of her, slightly bent over, reaching out his hand towards her. "Dad, don't bite her," I yelled instinctively. "The zombies can't understand human speech." "My dad, I haven't turned into a zombie." "What?" Sarah and I exclaimed in unison. "What are you talking about?" asked my mom, weakly leaning on the door, her face full of confusion. I reluctantly explained everything that had happened over the past 2 days. My mom broke down in tears, hugging my dad, overwhelmed with regret. "Husband, if you turn into a zombie, bite me first. It's all my fault for insisting on taking that bath. It seems I might not turn into a zombie after all," my dad said as he rolled up his trouser leg. The area that was festering just yesterday had now scabbed over. "What's going on?" We looked at each other, bewildered. Could it be that my dad is the chosen one, with anti-mutation genes in his body? "I think it might be due to the water," my dad theorized. We all turned to look at the spring, someone incredulously. "The water, this water, it's impossible for me to carry anti-mutation genes." Before touching the water, my leg was festering. Could it be that some mineral in the water has the power to counteract the zombie virus? It sounded like a fairy tale. I'd rather believe that my dad's body was extraordinary. "What's the harm in trying?" Sarah suggested. No sooner said than done. We filled dozens of plastic bags with water. We reopened the area we had sealed off yesterday. I lay on the ground, throwing rotten meat outside to attract the zombies. When the zombies came close, I hurled the water bombs at them, but the zombies showed no reaction after being hit. I threw another, still no response. "It seems it's not the water." Disheartened, I sat down on the ground. Sarah, unconvinced, also lay down to throw the water bags. "Just throw them, it's useless," I said, letting her take my place to have her fill of throwing. "Look, the zombies are falling down." Sarah was ecstatic, her voice trembling with excitement. I was invigorated and quickly lay down to look. My mood instantly brightened. Indeed, the zombies that had just been hit with a few bags of water were now lying motionless on the ground. We continued to throw meat outside to attract zombies, hitting each one with several bags of water. Before long, 4 or 5 zombies lay scattered by the door. Next, we waited to see if the zombies on the ground would rise again. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days passed. The zombies at the door did not get up again. Their rotting bodies emitted a strong stench in the sunlight. The water really worked. We had succeeded, but how could we spread the news so that the government would know? After some discussion, we decided to open the cave door. We folded countless notes into paper airplanes and sent them flying out. "Please spread the word. D Road No. 108. Cave Hotpot has a special cure for the zombie virus." 3 days later, people in camouflage knocked on the rolling door. That day, sprinkler trucks began spraying spring water. A month later, my city was the first to completely eliminate all zombies. Half a year later, all the zombies in the country had been cleared. Later, my hotpot restaurant became popular again. This time, it truly became a viral hotpot spot, a new landmark in the city. After finishing their meal, diners would even take a bucket of spring water home. They say drinking a cup daily strengthens the body and wards off all diseases. Finally, it was my turn to enjoy this incredible fortune.